Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to World of Perspective Radio on Blog Talk Radio. My name is Elizabeth Alron and I am your host. If you look up the words used to name this show, you will find among many others a picture or view of something for the word perspective, a realm or domain or sphere of human activity or interest for the word world. And if you look up the word human, you find sympathetic, humane. When you put the elements together, to me, it says that a world of perspective is a sympathetic and humane view of the things that matter. When you join me, you'll always find the show taking a perspective, a view that will potentially be inspiring, helpful, or illuminating. Does it mean you need to take it on as your own? Hardly. If it provides you fuel to continue going in the direction you've been going, great. If it gives you a new course of action to consider, also great. All I am desiring to do is give you some food for thought. The call-in number for the show is 347-324-5745. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to spending time with you. Hi, good evening. This is Elizabeth Alron, and I don't know if I should say the infamous Mark Davidson on the line with me. I don't know. Are you infamous, Mark?
I hope not. Hi, Liz. Maybe not yet. Maybe after tonight. We'll see.
Okay. I just saw this thing, and I don't know if you said this. I can't tell if you said this or somebody on Twitter said this, but it says, you'll be live on Blog Talk Radio, and it says, will he be as funny as his tweets, no pressure? Is that what somebody else said, or did you say that?
No, somebody else said that. That was Go Natural Baby.
Okay.
I love it. Awesome.
So,
we'll see.
Well, it's interesting because, I've only been on Twitter myself for a couple of weeks, and you instantly stood out. So there's definitely, there's something that, definitely I think pulls one's attention to you, especially since when I first came on to you kept saying, I will not flirt with. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And you never said that to me, though, so I'm not sure how to take that, I'll tell you. So that's okay. So I just want to say a little bit of something about myself in case anybody is curious who this voice is, although I'm sure they're all here to talk to you. But my name is Elizabeth Alron, and among many other things, I am a hypnotist, which, love it or hate it, it's usually a topic people find fascinating. And if you'd like to know more about me, there's various ways, but the one that I'll give you tonight is actually a webpage that I have that is increaseyournetworth.com, and it's not really what you think. So if what I do or how I sounds interesting to you, please check it out. And in between each word is actually a hyphen. So again, that's increaseyournetworth.com. And if by any chance you want to write to me at any point, you can get me on Twitter at Jolope, JOLOPE.com, which stands for Joy, Love, and Peace. And I also have a website by that same name. So, okay, so the rest of this show is about you, Mark.
Cool.
You definitely seem to approach things differently than everybody else, and you weren't trying to, push anything. As a matter of fact, it didn't even seem like you were saying much of anything, which actually I have to admit was one of my initial reluctance points in doing Twitter, because I always heard people say, I'm eating a peanut butter jelly sandwich for lunch, and I thought that's what Twitter was about.
Right.
So I really like to know, because after talking with you some, I got the very clear impression that you had a method to your madness, and
absolutely.
I think other people would probably be interested in that.
Until I used Opt-Me-Out and social too, my DM inbox was so filled with these automated messages thanking me for following them that I was unable to respond to DMs that were personally sent. And so for me, it created a problem because now all of a sudden I'm not being responsive. I'm dreading going into my inbox. It reminded me a lot of going into Outlook circa 1998, right? Just filled with spam. And I know people mean well, and their intention isn't to do that. And they are trying to market. They're trying to get their marketing message out. But the problem is that it's not necessary. Part of Twitter is following people. If you look at Twitter's branding and their marketing messages right on their site, they encourage people to follow other people. So in my opinion, there's really not a need to thank somebody. What would be more socially appropriate would be perhaps to look at my timeline, become maybe interested in me, maybe send me an @reply, jump in the conversation, engage me, get to know me. And that's kind of the strategy, if you can even call it a strategy, that I use on Twitter. I genuinely try to get to know people. One of the rules that I go by is, if I want people to be interested in me, I need to be genuinely interested in other people first. And I think that's key. Better and more appropriate use, I think, of Twitter is to forego the DMs, jump in the conversation, get to know people, find other people, connect with other people that share interests that you have. I think a better way of saying thank you to people is to engage them, comment on their comments, get into a conversation with them, get to know them. To me, there's not a more sincere compliment or a better way of saying thank you than to communicate with somebody. It shows that you are interested in them as a human being and as a person. And even though we're looking at our computer screens, it's important to remember that person is more than just an avatar on your computer. There's a real human being sitting at the keyboard.
Really? Seriously? You sure?
And I think a lot of people who are marketing on Twitter kind of forget that sometimes. And I think it's obvious who does that versus who doesn't do that. You can kind of tell from the people that just blast messages they don't add. A question a lot of people ask me is, how do you get more followers on Twitter? And I think the answer to that is use the @reply. The @reply is where it's at. Just keep using it over and over. Find people that that say interesting things. I try to provide value. I try to provide humor. And mostly I try to have conversations. And, in the time I've been using Twitter, a lot of the people I've met on Twitter are now real-life, real-world friends who I either talk to on the phone or I meet up with in person or I see at conventions or conferences. And, it's a fantastic social networking medium.
The one thing you were saying, too, is about, engaging them in conversation. I know one of the more awkward things for me getting started was just the kind of feeling like I was butting into somebody's conversation. And, it was kind of awkward at first. So I know you have some thoughts on that as well. And I know that some people were actually asking about that earlier today for you. So how would you suggest somebody kind of just jump in the middle of a conversation like that?
The analogy that I use is, and initially I think it's difficult to understand what Twitter really is. For people who are new, it's a little bit confusing and chaotic, I think. I use this analogy. Twitter is like a big online convention or conference. And just like a real-world convention or conference, you might find yourself standing in line for a booth, waiting to get your tchotchkes, your bag is open, you're good to go, your business card is out, and while you're waiting in line, perhaps you overhear a conversation. Now, most real-life conventions are busy. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of people. There are many, many conversations going on simultaneously in real time, not unlike Twitter. So perhaps you're in line waiting for this booth, and you overhear a couple of people talking. They're having a conversation, and you realize that they're in the same business that you're in. But not only that, perhaps they're in the same segment of the same business you're in. And because it is a conference or convention and it's socially acceptable to network and to introduce yourself, you join in the conversation. You get to know them. You exchange business cards. Then you can take that conversation out of the convention, maybe with a follow-up call at another time or a follow-up email. And so Twitter really isn't any different than that. Twitter has multiple conversations going on simultaneously in real time. So what we do is we focus in on the conversations that interest us. We introduce ourselves, we say hi, and we get to know the other person. And it's in full view, of everyone else in your Twitter stream.
So, yeah, for better or for worse.